everybody. This is Eating at April's. I'm getting ready to be photobombed by the cat. Okay, she's staying off to the side. It is 2:42 Monday morning, 2:42 a.m. And most of the cats, except for this one, are settled down. The dog is settled down and my husband is settled down. And I like to get a few things done. If I can, including cooking dinner for the next day. Anytime you make a bean dish, if you make it the night before, the flavors tend to settle in. And what I'm making today is something that you make the ingredients in advance and then you add them together. This comes from one of my favorite cookbooks, The Best of Irish Cooking by Alex Barker. And it is on page 31. It is their sausage and potato supper. You pre-cook a pound of either just pork rolled up into meatballs in the oven or sausage rolled up into meatballs. I just use a pound of the Smithfield sausage. And I pre-cook that. And then I chop them up in half. So that's done. And then you chop up about this much onion. Then you do a pound of potatoes, pre-cooked, sliced, yay big. And then it calls for beans. My husband prefers the black beans, so that's what I use. And then we're going to use a wonderful ingredient to pull it all together, and that is a light beer. And then just salt and pepper. So I've got the oil heating in the pan. And I'm going to tilt the screen, and we are going to get started. There we go. All right. So I've got this oil. It's good and ready. So I'll put my onions in. There we go. And I do prefer to use the green onions usually. They're a little bit stronger. You can cut the white parts off. And if you want to, just use the green parts and it'll cut down on the stomach acids, which is really good. You don't want to let these onions go for too long. The green onions get soft really quickly. I've got this on medium-high heat. There we go. There's that. And then your pre-cooked sausages, go ahead and throw those in there. Now, I will say I drain these sausages before I put them in the pan because I don't want it to get too oily. At this point, everything has been pre-cooked, so you're just combining everything and cooking it down. I do want a little bit more onion, so I'm going to just chop that up really fast. Thing with green onions is they reduce very quickly. All right. They reduce really quickly, so I had a little bit less than I realized I had. I'll get it. Yeah. I'm going to need just a tiny bit more oil, not too much. I'm using just a light olive oil here, not extra virgin. I do like cooking with that because it does not put any flavor into the food. And it is a non-hydrogenated, which is actually healthier. And I do want a few more onions in there. I just love my onions. It is so good for your heart. All right. That's the way it's going to be right there. Don't be stingy with onions in this dish. There's no sense in that. They're delicious. Matter of fact, and they put in one more. There we go. Okay. Now, we'll go ahead and dump in those beans. Mix that around. Just like that. See? Okay. Potatoes. Now, one thing that you can do is you can put the potatoes in a little bit undercooked, but I don't like to do that. I like to cook them all the way through because I don't cook this for very long. Now you put your seasonings in, salt, and pepper. That's all it is, salt and pepper. There we go. You don't want to stir this a whole horrible lot once you put the potatoes in because you don't want them to break down too much. The recipe says to cook this until the potatoes start to disintegrate. I don't like to do that. I don't like the texture at all. Okay, you hear that starting to hiss because it's starting to cook a little bit more. There's our beer. If you do forget to remove the beer from the refrigerator, it's not the end of the world, but try to use a room temperature 12-ounce beer if you can. And I would not use any of the craft beers. I would use something very light, like a Stella Artois or a Killian's. I wouldn't use anything like a Bud Light because you want a little bit stronger flavor than that, but you don't want anything like an IPA or a Guinness or anything that strong. What you want is a medium beer that has a crisp flavor, but one that's not going to overpower your dish. It's a surprise how the beer mingles with the flavors when you cook it into this. You would think that it would influence the flavors too much, but after this is done cooking, you cannot taste that you put beer in this at all, believe it or not, and it is just so delightful. So I'm going to turn this up to high. Mix it in there real good. And if you've pre-cooked everything and washed the pans that everything was in already, your cleanup is you throw the bean can away, throw the beer bottle away, and then you wash your chopping board, which is what I'm going to do, and you put your oil away. It is really, really fast. I'm moving this just a little bit closer. You can see that broth is starting to boil. When it comes to a full boil, I'll turn the heat down to medium, but not quite yet. What's going to happen is this is going to create a sauce or a light broth that thickens itself. I don't know if it's the fibers and the beans, or if it's the starch from the potatoes that congeals with the beer and makes it just lovely, but it's fabulous. Okay, now I'm going to cut that down just a teeny little bit, not too much. And if you could smell this, oh my goodness gracious. So it'll take a few minutes to cook down. While this is cooking down, I'm going to read a little bit to you. The sausage and potato supper. Whether you use sausages or sausage meat for this recipe really doesn't matter, but you do need a variety of potato that is floury rather than waxy. I will say I have never used the waxy potatoes to make this, but I've never had a dish with beans and potatoes that wasn't good. So if that's all you have, go for it. Pound of sausages or sausage meat, a large onion chopped, a pound of potatoes. This calls for them to be peeled. I never peel mine. I always try to leave my peels on my potatoes, even if I'm making mashed potatoes, because the peel is so good for you. This calls for 1¼ cups or half a pint of chicken stock or light beer. I just use a 12-ounce light beer, salt and pepper, and it says 8 ounces of canned beans drained. I use a 15-ounce can drained because I like my beans. And then you see the steps that we take. This particular book, I like this a lot. I have gotten a lot of my recipes from this, including a whiskey chocolate cake. It was published in 2002, and I'm just really crazy about it. If you ever get a chance to purchase this book, I really, really like it. Okay, now I'm at the point in this dish where there's virtually nothing to do except just keep the bottom from sticking. This is probably about halfway done. So I'm going to get out a spoon and I'm going to taste and see what the broth is like at this point. Some more salt. A little bit more pepper. I pepper everything very heavily in this house. We love pepper. We like black pepper, we like red pepper, but we do not use the red pepper in this. I grew up hillbilly. Sorry, I did. My mom's family was from southern Ohio, and my dad's family was from the deep south. Dad's side of the family is still in the deep south. And pork with potatoes and beans. Very, very important to know how to combine these things. This particular dish puts all of it together in one pot. And that makes me so happy. I don't know that my mom would have liked this, but I think my dad would have gone crazy for this. Okay. And that tastes good. And this is done. It's taken us less than 15 minutes, and you can see that this is really thick, but there's still just a little teeny bit of broth on it. And that's tomorrow's, well, that's actually tonight's supper. It's 2:57 a.m. on Monday now, and at about midnight or 1 in the morning, when it rolls around next time, Ted will get in from work. Excuse me. And this is what we're going to have. If you want to have a real country dinner, you can either do some pull-apart rolls with it, or if you want to be real country, just have bread and butter. Put a lump of butter on a piece of bread and fold it in half and sop up this gravy. And this has been Eating at April's, and I cannot wait until you try this wonderful dish. You have a good night.